What's happening, everybody? It's me, Robert Phoenix, and I'm here once again for the Astro Weather. And it's been a minute. We didn't do the show on Sunday night. Obviously, a lot of you were, I believe, aware of that. And the reason being was I had a little family emergency to attend to. This happens when you're a parent. I'm sure many of you can relate. But my son had a car that crapped out on him, and he had no visible means of transportation. And I just happened to have an extra car that I wasn't really using, so it was just a matter of getting him to the car and then getting him on his way. Which I would say, all in all, logistically, it worked out fairly well. Could have been a lot worse. And so we've solved one dilemma and problem. But it was really, as your children grow older and they become more social and self-aware, some of the conversations go into interesting places because he is really scuffling financially, like a lot of young people are. And he's a Gen Z kid, but he's not one of these Gen Z kids that like games the system. And I mean, he can move around the internet and do all kinds of tricks and stuff. But he's not a crypto kid. He's just not wired that way. He's much more in the physical world. Um, he's got Mars and Taurus and Venus and Taurus, and they're in his 10th house. So like his work is going to be more like 3D, more physical. And he's really into cooking and the service industry, and so he's got a job at one of the better restaurants in Fayetteville, and now he's learning how to attend bar, and I'm like, I'm just really supportive of him finding something that he loves and is good at. I don't care what it is, right? I'm not hung up on whether or not I can bust out and say, oh, my son's got a startup and he's doing X, Y. Look, I just want him to be productive and happy and creative. And I don't care really how it looks. But he was detailing just how difficult it is on the financial side of things. And, you know, my heart goes out to him because I think a lot of us when we're young, we all had to go through that. I mean, there are some people who were super smart and they went to school and they got a law degree and they got shot out of a cannon once they left college, or they studied medicine and they got shot out of a cannon. Back in the day when I was his age, you can make a lot of money in sales. You didn't need a degree. All you needed to be able to do was sell something to somebody. And I think that still holds true today. But the sales marketplace has changed so drastically that you're it's just a very different beast. So I think when young people have complaints or laments about 3D world, and we tend to look at it through the retrograde lens of our own lives. So all you gotta do is work harder and get another job. I mean, yeah, those things are relatively true, but the the job landscape is just changing radically. Last week over on 15 Minutes, I talked about how Microsoft, since May, has laid off 15,000 people. And who do you think they're going to replace those people with? They're going to replace them with H1, H1 people, and then also some AI people. So all those programmers, coders, all the people associated with those systems, they just go away, right? And then there's a massive trickle down effect as a result of that. So anyway, that was my Sunday night, was helping him solve a problem and then listening to the kind of ongoing problem of making it work in the 21st century. And apparently, he's gone into the the big beautiful bill, and he's looked at it, and he says it's really good for people that are above a certain income bracket, and not as good for people below a certain income bracket, which would include him. And he's not real happy about that. So it was an interesting time, and not just because it was my son, but because it's somebody from a particular generation going through their real struggle with finding themselves in the physical world and the material world and doing it in a way that allows them to be remotely abundant. Anyway, we're back now, and it's Tuesday, the 15th. And let me just do a quick view here of the peeps. Let's see. We got my guy, Michael, DJ MC, Diane Evans. The new next, Laugh Aloud Gemini Crabs, reminds me of some boys at the gym, super jacked and overly tan, clearly helping each other rubbing tanning lotion. Hey, that might be butter. That might be butter. And they don't know that they're rubbing in their own demise. Perhaps they're just making up for their tiny pinches. That's great. New next. Happy Tuesday back. Hans and Franz want to pump you up. DBC comes in with, hang on, everyone. It's going to be a wild week. Prayers are given. You're welcome as well. I had my stalker arrested on Saturday, and now he's on the warpath. Ugh, that's not good. Get yourself a can of mace. Barbara Boots is here. Isn't it her birthday today? Barbara, isn't it your birthday? That's right. It is her birthday. It is the birthday of Double B, Barbara Boots. Well, happy solar return, Barbara. Bill Smith is here. Stephanie Hunter. Robert in the Climate Club. Love it. Shells out, claws up, salty, ready to rumble. That's right. Jackie Doyle. Hey, Jackie, how you doing back there with all that water? You got your life vests out yet? Brandy Herrera. Night Slate. What's up, Night Slate? Good to see you. Misbehaving 2 is here. Was hit with the sun working on. Oh, beautiful. We love this. Let me throw that up there, Night Slate. Inspiration is always good. We welcome inspiration. Stephen Jupiterian. He's here. Cosmic Detective. Hi back, Cosmic Detective CD. Stephen's going to put his own creative project for sale on eBay. Good for you, Stephen. Share a link with us if you get a chance. Mercury retrograde in the 17th or 18th. It is coming. Janine's here. Hi, Janine. Good to see you. Yes, our friend the new next is quite witty. Let's see. Oh, Janice is here. How about that? We have an interesting start today. Derrida. I know this one. And boy, was he one evil Marxist. It's very interesting how the critics look back on the work of Derrida. I will do my best to exhume the ghost of the man that turned academia on its ear. Devin Dewar Double D is here. What's up, Devin? Green Eyed Crow. My 46 guard. So yes, hey, Green Eyed Crow. How about that? Went to the casino for the day. I hope you at least broke even. Hope you at least broke even. Happy solar return. Gleba, hi Gleba. Let's see. There's Steve Thor at the door. What's up, Steve? The mayor. Devin's birthday is tomorrow night. We got a lot of crabbies. We got a bucket of crabs in here today. A bucket of crabs. Let's get the lemon and the butter ready. There's Tom Jordan. Greetings, Tom. Kabuki Theater. Greetings, Bo. Lena Winkler's here. Noel Way. Hi, Noel Way. The lovely and talented one. Saving Austin one tooth at a time. Big Dave Sullivan. Walanda. It's Walanda. Ryan. Hey, Ryan. Good to see you. Let's go. Let's go right there. Now, listen, I have been putting stuff up on locals. For all you people who have been complaining, lamenting about I never put anything up, I am now posting regularly on locals, and I'm getting ready to throw down another post today on locals. If you haven't read my missives on the flood and the Trump presser, I highly recommend them. It's a bird's eye view of what's happening here through my eyes, which are set to be a little bit different. You know, I wear the sunglasses from They Live everywhere I go, and that's how I see the world. Let's see. PB, hey PB. Yes, hit that like and the notification bell. We gained 100 new subscribers. I'm pickled. I'm tickled. I'm pickled and tickled. You know, I noticed there's a black squirrel in the backyard now. He kind of stands out. All the rest of the squirrels are brown. Now we got a black squirrel. I wonder how they deal with the black squirrel. Do you think they see him as just another squirrel, or do they notice his blackness? I don't know. I have to watch. I have to play Darwin here. Scrubbies is here with the name check. Hey, Scrubs. Lisa Ann White. Hi, Lisa. Good to see you. Estelle Sully. Elsbeth Heron. Hi, Elsbeth. Breaking even is win. I'd agree with that. Carol Moore had some inspiration as well. Yes, if you like the work, if you like what I do, you can buy me a cup of coffee. Thank you, Ryan. Harry Bowie. Hey, let's see. EB's here. Maya Rose. Hi, Maya. Yes, I'll be talking about Kerrville and a lot more over on 15. Let's see. Amy Gillis here listening while walking the dogs. Cool. Driving but listening. Hi, SL. Thanks for dropping in. Hi, Bill Smith. Deanzik. Hello, Deanzik. Yes, if you want a reading, that's where you can go. Thank you, Ryan. Kelly B is here. Helian Hart Rosie's here. Boy, we got a packed house. Desley Logan. Hello, Desley. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Laura E. There she is. RH, no. Anybody in the chat, check out 119, 20, 26 astro chart. We haven't gone down that path that far, but that's when Neptune and Saturn reemerge together, don't they? At 0 degrees. It's an auspicious moment. I mean, I have, but we haven't made it official yet. Soul Traveler, what's going on, Soul Traveler? Christina Maria from is that Canada? Is that Canada? Cool. Sharon Lewis is here. Someone who works with food as an alchemist. Yeah, you know, I tell you, when he so you know, split custody, all that shit. When he stayed with me, due to the fact that I was on a limited budget, by the way, but I also enjoy cooking. I like cooking. I've got Mars and Cancer, so I cooked all the time, and he was always around when I was cooking, and I always took him to really interesting places to eat. So I kind of exploded his food palate. I mean, come on, we lived in the Bay Area, which is incredible for food. So I introduced him to all these different foods at a very early age. And we watched every single episode of Anthony Bourdain, he and I together, right? So he got kind of programmed for food. He's a Cancer rising, and he's got Mars and Venus in the 10th house. So I think it's actually a really good fit. Let's see. There's Neil Smith. Who else? Liddy Lou. What's up, Liddy? My son sells home security and solar. He hustles hard selling door. Not easy. No, it's not easy. Some of the old programs don't help our loved ones move forward. I would agree with that, Desley. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I really, Stephen brings up a really interesting point here. Worked for an educational supply store and Borders Books in the day. Both stores closed and worked as a substitute teacher. It's all about being adaptable, isn't it? It is all about being adaptable. Let's see. Knight says, yeah, the job market is tough for millennials and Gen Z. I'm lucky. I invested, can grow my business. But even that's on a time clock to be profitable before I might have to hit the job market again. It is not easy. You brought up a smart son, Robert. I did the best I could. I did the best I could, and the results are not fully in, but at least he's got a bit of a direction. Let's see. I can't imagine being in sales. Oh, I used to be killer at sales. I used to be killer. When I was a kid, I had a paper route. I was not a very good paper boy. Let me just be upfront about that. I did porch the papers. I was good about that. I had a good arm. Wasn't always on time, but they got there. Where I excelled was getting new starts for the newspaper. I was very good at that. Very, very good. I would go door to door and I'd sign people up for the paper. And when you do sales, you got to be able to deal with rejection. So I was able to deal with rejection pretty well when I was young, but my hit rate was really high. So I got all these awards. I got silver dollars. I got cases of Pepsi. I won a trip to Magic Mountain. So the sales thing was easy. Salty Cal. Hey, Joe. I like it. Like and subscribe. Thank you. Should we get into the weather? Good group today. There's Robin Dan. Hi, Robin. Let's see. You got to go milk. Well, go get your milk on, Janice. Go, go, goaty. Moonsprout Meowgical Catacorn is here. We got a good group today. Garden Girl. How about that? And this anybody? Moonsprout. Liz Atwell. Hi, Liz. From Down Under. Desiree Conrad. Your stressful energy last week. That's an understatement. Oh, Lady T. You have red squirrels. Black one is a ground squirrel. Wonder how they deal with that. Do the brown squirrels go? Oh, there goes the tree. The white squirrels. Wow. Now that is something. White squirrels. I'm feeling you, Robert. Robert Listmore flood. Yeah. Oof. Hey, it's Jay Schaefer. What's going on, Jay? Monsoon start this week. Oh, it's your turn now, huh? About that. Oh, you're welcome, Desley. Everybody gets a bit of a shout out here as I scroll through. I think we're up to speed. Hope I didn't leave anyone out. If I did, I apologize. Oh, Olivia Provorce, you're here. And Josie Sassy Joe. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it, do it, do it. Let's do it. All right. Here we go. I had to send a ticket. I had to put in a ticket today with StreamYard because their audio settings are fucked. It won't allow me to use my USB mic. So here we go. We're now in the Piscean decade of the Cancerian sun. How much water can we take on here? Holy smokes. Jupiter, Jupiter's going to conjunct Sirius. I don't think we're done. We got about 7 degrees before Jupiter conjunct Sirius, and are we on the reset button or the recycle button or the repeat button here with the deluge? What possibly? Also, let's look at this from the interest rate perspective. Trump is at war with Jerome Powell. Trump wants to lower interest rates, and instead, if you follow the big beautiful bill, part of it is another iteration of quantitative easing, which is kicking the can down the road. Now, that might include some ability for banks to independently loan money to each other the way they used to do. That's how they used to do it. But if a bank wanted money, they would go to another bank. And as time went on, the Federal Reserve discouraged that. Said, if you want to borrow money, you got to borrow money from us. So if Trump, with this big beautiful bill, is basically setting up a new round of quantitative easing, maybe what he does is he unlocks the banks, and as a result, the banks get unstuck and unfrozen. So his friends can borrow money cheaper, and we might get the crumbs with the ability to perhaps get cheaper loans for houses and mortgages. A lot of people tell me, well, it's not just that, it's HOAs and all this other stuff. Look, there are plenty of areas in this country that don't have HOAs. And even where I live, there is theoretically an HOA. I don't know what the fuck they do, and I certainly don't pay them any money. Nobody does. So not all HOAs are little brother, but I don't think it's contributing to the um, sort of the what would I call it, the miasma of the real estate market. Um, but yeah, that sun is at 23 Cancer, and it's been in the Piscean Decan for the last 2 days. I just see more water on the way with Jupiter coming up on Sirius. And today it looks like we have a Piscean moon, and the sun is trining that Piscean moon. I think there's an upside to that. The upside is uh, compassion, care, even the vibe in chat today. Very kind. It usually is, although every now and then somebody's working some shit out, and that's okay. But I would say that overall the vibe is compassionate, kind, caring. The moon is coming right off the conjunction with the true node, which would have been last night. And the true node is a lunar. It's a lunar um, aspect, right? So we're really into node land here, and there's an emphasis on that true node in Pisces. A lot of water, lot of water. Now we also have Mars getting ready to conjunct the south node, and not real crazy about that, to be honest with you. Now, when a planet, let's say it's your chart, and let's say you have Mars in Virgo, and let's say that is your south node, but it's on the outside of the chart because it's a transit you're going through. My experience with the south node conjunctions is about releasing, and they're not really crisis oriented per se. It depends on how you respond to the release. So Mars in Virgo wants to be in control. I mean, that's the nature of Mars in Virgo. In the South Node conjunction, is that the way people have been in control is outmoded, and they have to release their strategies of control. Where do we see this now more than ever? It's with the federal government. If you go into the chart of the United States, Mars is getting ready to conjunct the natal Neptune in Virgo, which is conjunct the midheaven of the US chart. And when Mars transits the ninth house, that's Sagittarius's house. That's about truth. By the way, I have made a fascinating discovery about Sagittarius, which I'll share with you before we get into Derrida. So Mars in Virgo, hey, the details matter, right? Like you can't just sweep Jeffrey Epstein under the rug, memory hole it, and move on. And there is an alternate theory that all these other things have to happen first before they get to Epstein and the perp list. That's a problem. And the problem is about time and timing, it, especially with Mars and Virgo, because Mars and Virgo doesn't have any time. It's kind of like the rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. We're late, we're late, we're late. Like that's Mars and Virgo. So let's just say this is true. Let's just say that this is part of the plan. Well, how long is that going to take? 6 months? 8 months? A year? How do you think the morale of the people is going to express itself over a 6-8 month period where, for all intents and purposes, Trump's lost the room? And I've heard this, by the way, that, oh, well, we just have to get all these other people first, got to get the ducks in a row, and he's going to use it against the deep state. I mean, we've been hearing this for a long time. But at a certain point, people need to have resolution. People need to have closure. And if you're pushing that resolution and closure off for 6 months, there's no telling what the morale of the country is going to be like. So timing is critical. If all of a sudden a month from now, all of these people were being exposed and brought to trial, and Trump might be able to save the plot. But from everything we've seen, from his press conferences to this just absolute wall of text on Truth Social and clamoring about the stolen election and Russiagate and all these other things that have happened in the past that we really need to focus on versus Jeffrey Epstein. People just don't have the stomach for this. They just don't. And as Mars continues to move into this opposition with, well, it won't be just with the moon because the moon will move on, but we're dealing with Venus now coming in and squaring Mars right here. Venus in Gemini is willing to look at the other side of the story. That's the nature of Gemini, right? Gemini rules journalism, by the way. So we're willing to look at the other side of the story, but right now, with Mars squaring Venus, it's like other side of the story. No, we want justice, and we want it now. Matt, what's his name from the Daily Wire, whom I've come to actually like because he has chimed in on very sensitive topics in spite of his own employer, Matt Walsh, in spite of his own employer. And he did about a 20-minute clip just detailing the history of all this that went down. And one of the things that he brought up, and this is really important, the Mercury retrograde is going to be fascinating here around all this. And one of the things he pointed out was when those influencers went to DC and they got those binders, and what they said was Epstein files phase one. So there theoretically was going to be a phase two and a phase three. And it was really just a bait and switch moment. So they were acknowledging that there was going to be more to come. And all of a sudden we're shutting it down. So this Mars Venus square, I think, is caustic and fraught with tension. And as Mars begins to progress and move into Libra, and we're going to get that opposition with more than likely Neptune because Saturn's retrograde right now. Mars in Libra is all about justice. And then the opposition with Neptune is, well, let's obscure that. Let's point you in a different direction. Let's get you chasing something else, right? So I'm looking at a lot of what we're talking about today from a much more collective or mundane perspective. There is it's going to be interesting in Mars and Libra. It's not just going to be United States related. There has been a conscious and long-term execution of moving people from one part of the world to another, mostly Europe. And now they're talking about, well, where are the Palestinians going to go? And some countries in Europe are raising their hands. We'll take the Palestinians. It's just a continuation of essentially displacing people, either due to a war or a regime change, or figuring out that where those people live, there's some rare earth minerals there. They got to get the fuck out. So they displace the people. And then, of course, the social engineers are more than happy to deposit them in cultures that are quite different than the ones that they have been raised in, lived in, and this has been ongoing. The refugee wave started in 2011. We're we're halfway of a Saturn cycle into this by now, and there are signs that this thing is going to blow. And wait till Mars goes into Libra. It won't be your typical Mars and Libra transit. I can tell you that right now. Especially when it starts to square Jupiter and it starts to square the Sun. It moves into opposition with Neptune. In Spain the other day, they burned down a mosque. The Spaniards are out of patience. And now you have the Spanish army, or their version of the National Guard, whatever, going up against their own people because their own people have had enough. And this is a culture that spent, what, 200 years? 250 years? I mean, almost a quarter of a century trying to get the Moors out, which they eventually did. So it's not something that is uncommon to them or their history. You've got the Irish, who are completely lost any sense of patience with what's going on in their situation. And the Irish are, they've got a history of blowing shit up, right? So I feel that this refugee crisis is going to get much bigger and much more heated when Mars moves into Libra. And it's going to be fascinating to watch. Um, and it's probably about time that some of these people in these countries have, decided that they wanted to do something different about all this. It's a little late, but at some point things just hit critical mass, and you just can't deal with it anymore. Keep your eye on the sun here. We're coming into the first opposition of the sun in Leo with Pluto. That's going to be very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, I know a lot of you follow Stephen Burns and space weather and um, sort of that version of the physical array of the solar system, and I would bet that the Sun Pluto opposition will also be reflective in heavy duty CME activity. So we're about 7 days away from that. So keep your eyes on the first Sun Pluto opposition of the Pluto in Aquarius ingress. It's the first one. First one is always the most powerful, right? What else? What else do we have here? Yeah, Jupiter squaring Saturn and Neptune, just making everything much bigger, right? Jupiter related to your home, your domicile. And what did they do here in Kerr County? They had an emergency meeting with the Kerr County board, and they raised property taxes to 8.5%. And they've been at 3.5. And by law, they cannot do that unless there's an emergency. So do you think they're going to dial that back at a certain point in time? It's doubtful. Once they get to a certain point, they're done. And of course, nobody was there to uh, have a dissenting opinion. And what are you going to do? If you say no, you come off as like this selfish curmudgeon. Oh, you don't want to help the people of the county of Kerrville in this time of crisis and need? I mean, let's do the math here. State of Texas, total emergency. State of Texas will deliver funds to Kerrville. Um, FEMA, there's plenty of money on the table. Okay. There's this app where you can find out how much your city or town is giving to Israel every year. For Kerrville, it's over $1 million. That's Kerrville alone. Yeah, believe it or not. Just why don't we do this? Just drop that and take that $1 million and just reallocate it to people that are here. Doesn't that make much more sense? Anyway, the Jupiter Cancer squaring Saturn Neptune. It's like, here we go. We're going to get into your pocketbook, and we're going to grab more money, because during a time of crisis and emotion, we can do it. And if you object to what we're doing, well, you're just a tight ass, and we don't really care. You don't really care about your fellow Texans or Kerrvillians, which is not true. They're just taking advantage of the law. The sun is still in this square with Chiron, and it's going to get more intense, and it feels very defensive in nature. Very, very defensive. We're headed into it. Try. This is just my advice to you guys. And of course, I have to take my own advice. Do your best not to take these personally. with the Sun Chiron square. And some of the stings might really sting, but do your best not to take it personally. And also don't harbor any resentments or grudges. They're like poison. And if you do have an encounter where something needs to be addressed, do it, but do it in a dispassionate and objective way if you can. If you can't, revisit it and do it at a time when you can. But don't wait too long. All right. Let's get into our star of the day. All right. So let's do a little banner action here. There we go. And our True Hemp Science star of the day is none other than Jacques Derrida. Before I attempt to deconstruct this chart, let me just tell you a little bit about our friends over at True Hemp Science. Here is a bottle G22 Synapta, one of the many fine elixirs you will have over on THS. I'm out of that one already. What else do I have? I was going to take some. I've got Lumina and I've got some. Let me take some Solara. I know I've got some Solara left. This is number 19. It's one of the many fine elixirs over at THS. I'm just going to, right there, 2 drops. Man, you can really taste the cannabinoids in a good way in that. If you spend $100 more, type in 15-MINS, you get a free goodie bag. You get like a crisp. He includes like vials, a little bit smaller than this, but you'll get some interesting product in there. You'll get some of the gummies, which you will like. $150 more gets you free shipping. There's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. And it is a homegrown, American-made product business, which we love to support. TrueHempScience.com, your one-stop shop for all of your CBD needs. Okay, let's get into Derrida. So one of the interesting things about Derrida is that he is an outsider. Okay, he's born in Algeria, and he also happens to be Jewish. So he eventually makes his way to Paris, Sorbonne, and into the halls of academia. And Paris in France is rife with alternative thought at that time. You had people from an older generation like Jean Genet, you had Jean-Paul Sartre, you had Simone de Beauvoir, a whole host of thinkers that are challenging the precepts of culture and truth. And Derrida comes along. And what he does is he says, when we look at truth, or we try to objectify truth, generally how that works is that we objectify it through the lens of our cultural precepts. So since Derrida is both a Jew and an Algerian, he doesn't have the same cultural precepts. So Derrida asks the question, or questions, what does truth look like to somebody from another country? What does truth look like to a woman versus a man? What does truth look like for someone who has a radical sexual identity? So this whole idea of deconstructing the truth begins with Derrida. Now, one of his contemporaries is Michel Foucault, and they are kind of arriving at the same revelations, but with different directions. Another one of their contemporaries was a guy by the name of Gilles Deleuze. If you've ever tried to read Derrida or Deleuze, it's really, really tough sledding. Roland Barthes was around at that time, and Roland Barthes is one of these language guys. They're getting this is all sort of post Hiroshima, Nagasaki. If you're playing with the bomb, the atomic bomb metaphor, everything's about deconstruction. Like you can see this in various art forms. You can see it in music, right? In the atonal composers. You can see it in some poetry, even, right? Like looking at an E. E. Cummings poem, which is fragmented and kind of deconstructed. It's happening all over the place in the postmodern world. And I believe that the postmodern world is defined by World War II and also the atomic bomb. And so this is what Derrida is doing. He's challenging convention, he's challenging academia, and he's influenced greatly by Heidegger. That is his philosophical champion. And as I mentioned before, he and Foucault, who are contemporaries, have a falling out. And it's because no matter what you think of Foucault, and Foucault is really the father of critical theory, not Derrida. Foucault attempts to deconstruct culture and enculturation to reveal some degree of humanity which takes place in the political realm. And Derrida is not really political, although his ideas do become political. And it's because what he wants to do is he wants to account for this idea of truth that is not bound by certain cultural standards. And so his style and form and thought of thinking begins to infuse everything from literary uh, critiques to cinematic critiques to musical critiques. There's a new standard of defining what the truth is, but that standard is going to be very subjective. Now, where do we see this in the chart? Well, first of all, is a Virgo rising. And there are, the thing about Virgo rising is that there's an exactitude that Virgo rising demands. And when you look at his relation with somebody like Foucault, if Foucault breaks from the Catechism of Derrida, that Virgo rising is going to be critical of Foucault, right? I mean, there's just a critical nature in general. And even though we're talking about deconstructionism, it is a component of critical theory. It is not the same critical theory that Foucault will espouse, but it is a critical theory. And so Derrida embodies this, right? Where I think his chart, and again, where is all of this in his chart? That's really the question. And it feels to me like it's this Sun, Mercury, Cazimi, right? It's right there. Sun, Mercury, Cazimi. Like the man is his thoughts. The thoughts are the man. And when we get into Cancer, Cancer is not the monolithic structure of Capricorn, even though he does have Saturn in Capricorn. Cancer gets down into the subatomic structure of the people that Derrida is bringing to the table to talk about, right? Like, what is truth to, and a lesbian amputee, right? Like, this is where the whole Cancerian thing begins to come into play. And I think it's a very powerful conjunction in a lot of ways. And Derrida did a lot of public speaking, a lot of public speaking, a lot of presentations, a very 11th house. And he also has this Mercury Pluto conjunction. So he is going to transform thinking and language. And he's going to do it unapologetically. He has a series in Leo. So to me, that's like fostering and tending to younger minds. And so he has this intense stellium in Cancer. And he is, I feel like the deconstruction mode is right there. And especially when we throw Uranus into the mix, right? He's got Uranus in Aries, and it's in the 8th house, and it's squaring his sun, it's squaring Mercury. He's rebellious. He's rebellious. I mean, Derrida wants to burn the system down. He wants to burn classical thought down. He wants to eradicate the past so that moving forward, humans have a way of understanding a world that isn't just based on some belief in a supreme being and that everything is going to be okay. So for Derrida, part of the deconstructive theory is show me the receipts. Can you prove this? Well, let's deconstruct it. And if what's left over through the deconstruction is a kernel of truth, then we have something. And if we don't, then it's just a fallacy and a belief versus a truth that we were able to derive from deconstructing the original concept or premise. And with his true note in Aries, he is going to be a pioneer, right? He is bound in some ways to just keep moving forward. And this is all the 8th house. So part of what Derrida is tapping into is the realm of taboo and the unconscious. He might have some freaky section going on too, by the way. But that's what he's doing, right? Like, he is super rebellious. He's almost like Prometheus in some ways, and he's stealing fire from the gods. And academia loves him, and his ideas spread like wildfire. Because if you can understand Derrida, which is not easy, and you can apply his version of deconstructionism, well, you've got a map. And I've talked about this before. In college, what they do is they bring you into things like deconstruction and critical theory. And deconstruction is Derrida's bailiwick, critical theory is Foucault, and you get a full dose of this. And then once you graduate from college, you apply critical theory and deconstructionism to everything. Once you learn it, you apply it to everything. And then usually what happens is that it is a reaffirmation of certain beliefs that are previously held. And that truth is not some objective truth with a capital T, it's subjective with lots of lowercase t's. Now, he's got Mars in Gemini, and it's conjunct his midheaven, and it's right at the beginning. He's restless, 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 restless. He's got that Mars square to Neptune, Mars square to Venus. Um, my sense is he had some very weird relationships. Would not be surprised if he was involved with kink and bondage. I have no way to validate that, but I can see this in his chart. Hidden relationships in the 12th house, probably related to his students. Then he's got Saturn in Capricorn, and he's got Uranus squaring Saturn. Saturn in Capricorn is tradition, right? It's tradition. And Uranus wants to blow it up. And he's got this Jupiter Saturn opposition. He's like, yeah, enough of the ruling class, enough of the status quo. Jupiter wants to liberate that. So he's a very complex character in a lot of ways. But if I were to pin down his tabula rasa for the deconstructive part of his life work, it's here. It's that Uranus and Aries squaring Pluto, squaring Mercury, and squaring his sun. That's the deconstruction. Here, when you get into the Sun Mercury conjunction, it's like the idea of truth becomes very subjective. Who determines what? Because if you're somebody who lives, on the equatorial plane, your version of truth is going to be different than somebody who lives in the Swiss Alps. And the only way you can come to some degree of truth is to deconstruct those realities. And you're going to come up with different versions of the truth. So there you go. There's your True Hemp Science star of the day, Jacques Derrida. All right. I hope you enjoyed today's weather. We're moving over to 15 minutes. Update on Kerrville and then some. And you know the drill. Take care of yourselves. Treat each other well. God bless. Love you all.